The twin suns of Virelia blazed overhead, casting relentless heat across the ochre dunes. Every step Zane Calder took was a struggle. His boots sank into the fine, powdery sand, and his armor, sleek but thick, trapped the rising heat until it felt like his blood boiled. Sweat ran in rivulets down the sides of his face, mixing with the dust and grit of the wasteland. "Fucking desert," he muttered, adjusting the plasma rifle slung across his back. He paused at the crest of a dune and lifted his visor. Below, an endless expanse of cracked rock and shimmering air offered no comfort. 3 weeks ago, Zane had signed on with the Orion Guild, an elite bounty hunter syndicate known for taking on the dirtiest jobs in the sector. The credits were solid, enough to clear his debts and buy him a quiet retirement on some beach world. But no one mentioned that the first assignment would be tracking a group of rogue marauders across Virelia's most brutal badlands. The wind howled, shifting sand into his face. Zane checked his wrist communicator. Nothing. The solar interference was jamming signals again. Typical. He was alone. Again. The mission? Simple on paper. Locate the Crimson Shade, a notorious pirate cell responsible for wiping out 3 trade stations and executing over 200 civilians. Track them. Confirm the location of their desert base. Await reinforcements. Only, those reinforcements hadn't come. And now he was 2 days past the rendezvous point, low on water, and pretty sure the Shade knew someone was on their tail. A flicker of movement caught his eye to the east. He crouched instantly, pulling his scope from his belt. Through the wavering heat haze, he spotted figures, a skimmer vehicle, half buried in the sand. Around it, 5 individuals moved about, all in mismatched armor and carrying heavy weapons. Shade pirates. And a 6th figure. Zane adjusted the focus. The 6th wasn't armored like the others. Slender. Kneeling. Doing repairs? Odd, he murmured. He raised his communicator again. Calder to base. I've got eyes on a Shade patrol, coordinates transmitting. Static. Damn it. He ducked lower and pulled his rifle into his arms. He could wait. Observe. Or, his heart quickened, he could act. Then, one of the pirates peeled off from the group and began walking directly toward the dune where Zane was hidden. Shit, he breathed. He slid back, crouching behind a jetting slab of sun-baked rock. The footsteps grew louder. Closer. He steadied his breathing, rifle aimed. Then, an explosion of motion. Something leapt from the rocks to his left, tackling the pirate mid-step. The figure moved fast, too fast for a human, graceful, lethal. In seconds, the pirate lay unconscious in the sand. Zane tensed, weapon trained on the attacker. Then she turned. And everything about the day changed. She stood tall, lithe and deadly, 1 foot on the fallen pirate's chest. Her fur, thick, orange, and glistening with sweat, clung to her toned frame in the desert heat. She wore a sand-streaked tactical vest that hugged her torso, partially unzipped to reveal the plush white fur beneath, and dark desert weave pants with armored plating over her thighs. Her pointed muzzle twitched slightly as she scanned the area, sharp canines glinting as her lips parted in a faint smirk. Zane had seen a lot of alien species in his time. None like her. A humanoid vulpine, extremely rare. The ears atop her head twitched as if scanning for more threats. Her long, white-tipped tail flicked behind her as she holstered the blade she'd used in the takedown. When she spotted him, rifle aimed at her chest, she didn't flinch. Instead, she raised an eyebrow, an oddly human gesture. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," she said, voice low and accented, melodic and edged with dry amusement. Zane didn't lower the rifle. "Who the hell are you?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she crouched to check the pirate's pulse, then cuffed his hands behind his back with fluid ease. "Name's Sarah Vale," she said finally, rising again. "I'm not with them. I'm hunting them." "A merc?" "I prefer the term independent tactical operative." She dusted off her hands and stepped toward him with a predator's grace. "And you're with the Orion Guild, right?" Zane Calder, if the bounty board's up to date. His grip on the rifle tightened. You've done your homework. I make it a point to know who else is gunning for my prey. Her violet eyes, an unnatural, glowing violet, locked on his. And since we're after the same bastards, maybe we don't need to point guns at each other. Zane hesitated, then lowered his weapon a few inches. Fine. But I'm still not convinced you aren't a shade infiltrator. If I were, that guy wouldn't be breathing, she said, gesturing with her muzzle toward the unconscious pirate. And I'd have called for backup when I saw you instead of talking. Point. He slung his rifle across his back. What's your angle, Sarah? They raided a civilian convoy last month. My brother was on it. Her voice sharpened. I tracked them here. Been sabotaging their scouts ever since. Zane considered her for a long moment. She was dangerous, no doubt. But he could see the burn of vengeance in her eyes. It mirrored his own. All right. You've got one chance. Help me take them out, and maybe we both walk away with something. Sarah flashed a toothy grin. I like the way you think, Calder. He pointed back toward the skimmer. 5 pirates, plus their mechanic. Think you can handle 3? I'll take 4, she said with a wink, tail swishing confidently. You can handle 1 and the nerd. Zane smirked despite himself. Let's dance. Together, they descended the dune, 2 predators circling a wounded pack. Neither of them knew yet that this uneasy alliance would change the course of their lives forever. They moved like shadows, weaving between rock outcroppings and skeletal remains of dead trees long bleached by the suns. The dying light turned the sand to gold and stretched their shadows across the desert floor. Sarah dropped into a crouch beside Zane as they peered down at the shade camp. The pirates had no clue what was coming. 1 by the skimmer, 2 tinkering with a power cell, and the last 2 arguing near a supply crate. Zane whispered. Sarah's ears twitched, adjusting to the ambient noise. I'll loop around left. Draw the ones by the crate. You handle the others. You sure? He asked. I'm not the one sweating like a waterfall, human. Zane couldn't help the smirk. All right, Fox Girl. Show me what you've got. She was gone before he could blink, vanishing into the rocks, moving with astonishing silence for someone with a tail nearly a meter long. Zane turned his focus back to the group near the skimmer. He crept in low, activating his camo field. It flickered slightly. Virelia's magnetic interference made perfect cloaking impossible, but it was good enough. The 2 pirates hunched over the power cell never noticed him. He was on them fast, jamming his blade into one spine while choking the other with an arm around the throat. The second pirate struggled briefly before going limp. Gunfire cracked from the other side of camp. Zane spun, rifle raised. Sarah was in motion, her dual pistols barking sharp bursts of plasma. She dove, rolled, and came up firing. 1 pirate dropped, then another. The last turned to run, only to catch one of her knives between the shoulder blades. Clear! She called out, panting slightly. Zane emerged from behind the skimmer, dusting sand off his chest plate. Not bad. Sarah walked over, tail swaying behind her. Didn't even break a sweat. Show off. They regrouped at the skimmer, dragging the bodies into the shade of the nearby cliff. Sarah crouched beside the mechanic's terminal, rifling through it for data. Zane covered her, eyes on the horizon. The desert was growing darker by the minute, and predators, 2-legged or otherwise, would soon be out hunting. Found something, she said, flicking on a display. A map of the Dagger Spine ravine appeared, with a blinking red indicator. Looks like the main base is here, she pointed. About 50 clicks southeast. Some kind of deep trench, natural cover from aerial scans. Smart. Let me see, Zane said, leaning over her. The scent of her fur was faintly spicy, earthy. It caught him off guard. Sarah noticed. Careful, human. You look like you're about to fall in love. Just evaluating the terrain, he said quickly, looking away. She smirked. Sure. Zane cleared his throat. We should leave before another patrol shows up. Syrah nodded and powered up the skimmer. Then let's go. The night's only going to get colder. They rode into the desert side by side, wind whipping at their faces. Behind them, the sky turned indigo, and the twin suns dipped below the horizon, leaving only stars, and the beginning of something neither of them fully understood. The desert night came fast and vicious. As the skimmer tore across the dunes, Zane hunched deeper into his armor. The heat of the day had fled, replaced by a frigid wind that sliced through even his thermal layers. Syrah, at the controls, seemed unfazed. Her orange fur rippled in the wind, and her violet eyes never strayed from the horizon. You don't get cold? Zane asked over the roar of the skimmer. Not as easily as you soft-skinned types, she replied, her voice barely raised. Still, this place bites after sunset. We need shelter. Zane nodded, pulling up the navigation data from her map. There's a rock formation 5 clicks ahead. Could be a good spot to bunker for the night. Syrah angled the skimmer in that direction. Let's hope it's not already taken by something with claws. They arrived at the jagged rise of stone 10 minutes later. The formation jutted out of the sand like the spine of some buried beast, its dark silhouette sharp against the starlit sky. They parked the skimmer in a crevice between rocks and dismounted, weapons ready. A narrow cave mouth yawned nearby. Syrah sniffed the air. No predators. Nothing fresh, anyway. I'll take it, Zane said. They moved inside, setting up a small energy field for heat. The cave was shallow but dry, its walls smooth and glassy from ancient lava flows. Zane unrolled a heat mat while Syrah scavenged firewood from their pack and a few dried roots found at the cave entrance. As sparks crackled and warmth bloomed, the tension began to ease. Syrah pulled off her gloves and sat across from him, tail curled around her legs. So, Calder, you ever hunt with a partner before? Once, he said, not meeting her gaze. Didn't end well. Ah, she said quietly. Guild betrayal or lover's spat? Bit of both. He shrugged. What about you? I work alone. Always have. Her violet eyes flicked to the firelight. But lately, I've started to think that maybe I shouldn't. They sat in silence for a moment, the fire dancing between them. I still don't get it, Zane said at last. You're clearly overqualified for this kind of job. Why risk it all for revenge? She stared into the flames. Because they took everything. My home, my family. We weren't fighters. We were artists, scholars. The Shade didn't care. They wanted the minerals beneath our land. So they burned it all. Zane leaned forward. And you survived. Barely, she murmured. I was off-world. Came back to ashes. He didn't speak. There was nothing to say that would do it justice. Instead, he reached into his pack, pulled out his canteen, and handed it to her. To the dead. And to the bastards who made them that way. She drank, then passed it back. And to those who make them pay. They locked eyes. The firelight reflected in her pupils, deep, endless, and burning with a quiet fury. For the first time in a long while, Zane felt something more than duty. He felt connection. Zane awoke to the unmistakable hiss of plasma fire. Up! Syrah shouted, crouched near the cave entrance, her blaster barking into the night. We've got company! He rolled, grabbing his rifle and scanning the mouth of the cave. Bright red bolts lit up the darkness beyond. Shadows moved among the rocks, ducking between cover, their return fire spraying haphazardly. Shit, he growled, crawling into position beside her. How many? At least 8, she replied, reloading in a smooth, practiced motion. They must have followed our skimmer trail. Thought we parked it in a blind spot. Apparently not blind enough. A plasma bolt slammed into the stone above them, showering sparks and debris across the cave floor.
Please tell me.
Zane ducked and returned fire, dropping one of the silhouettes trying to flank. Syrah activated a smoke grenade and tossed it wide across the entrance. The white cloud exploded outward, giving them temporary visual cover. We can't hold this position. Zane nodded, breathing hard. There's a narrow path leading deeper into the formation. I saw it last night. Might loop around. You sure? Not remotely. Perfect, she said, baring her fangs. Let's go. Zane led the way, crouching low as they sprinted through the cave's rear. The passage was narrow, walls barely wide enough for his shoulders, but it twisted and turned just enough to break any line of sight. Behind them, voices shouted through the smoke. The pirates were closing in. They burst into the open on the far side of the rock formation, onto a high ledge overlooking the ravine below. The wind had picked up, carrying grains of sand that whipped against their skin.
I can't remember.
Options? Syrah shouted over the howling gusts. Zane scanned quickly. There. That slope, steep, but passable. Another plasma bolt zipped past them, singing the air. Go! He yelled. They slid down the slope in a controlled tumble, boots slipping in loose gravel, landing hard at the base near a cluster of boulders. Syrah was the first to her feet. She spun and fired a cover shot that sent one of the pursuing pirates tumbling down the slope with a scream. Zane grabbed her arm and pulled her toward a narrow canyon that snaked into the desert. They ran without stopping for nearly 20 minutes, dodging rock pillars and dry ravine beds, until finally, mercifully, there was no sound behind them but wind. Panting, Zane dropped to a knee, catching his breath. Syrah was beside him, her chest heaving, fur matted with sweat and dust. Well, she said, trying to laugh. That's one way to start a morning. Zane gave a breathless chuckle. I'm beginning to think the desert hates us. It doesn't hate us, she said, leaning back against a boulder. It's just trying to kill us slowly. They shared a tired smile, and despite the exhaustion and danger, Zane felt something else stir in his chest. Respect. Maybe more than that. The morning wore on as they trudged through the ravine, navigating between jagged cliffs and towering stone spires that cast long, shifting shadows. The adrenaline from the fight had faded, replaced by sore muscles and aching feet. Zane's water reserves were dangerously low. His tongue felt like sandpaper. Syrah, though weary, kept a steady pace. Her kind seemed better adapted to this harsh environment. The orange of her fur had dulled with dust, but she still moved with the same controlled grace, shoulders relaxed, ears twitching with every distant sound. You all right? She asked, glancing back. I've had worse days, Zane muttered. Barely. Then you're lucky. I've had a lot worse. They reached a shaded alcove beneath an overhanging slab of volcanic rock. Zane collapsed against the wall with a groan. This is the most I've ever sweat in armor. Syrah tossed him a canteen. Hydrate, melt boy. He drank greedily, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. Thanks. She sat across from him, curling her tail around her legs. For a while, either of them spoke. The silence was companionable, broken only by the wind whistling faintly through the rocks. Then Zane asked the question that had been tugging at him since last night. Why me? Syrah looked up. I mean, he continued, you've made it clear you prefer to work alone. Why team up now? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached up and unclipped her helmet, shaking her head free of it. Her long white mane spilled around her shoulders. She ran her claws through it absently as she spoke. Because you didn't flinch. What? Back at the dune, she said. Most humans freeze when they see me. Or worse, they stare like I'm some kind of exotic collectible. You didn't. You acted. You adapted. That means something. Zane tilted his head, surprised. So you trust me? I trust you enough to let you watch my back, she said carefully. Don't make me regret it. He gave a short laugh. I won't. Her gaze lingered on him a moment longer, then softened. And you? Why are you really here, Zane called her. He exhaled slowly, running a hand over the short stubble on his jaw. The guild said it was a recon op light duty. Just confirm the Shade's position and wait for backup. And instead? No backup. No contact. Just me, this rifle, and a death warrant with my name on it. Syrah's tail flicked thoughtfully. Sounds familiar. They sat in silence again, but something had shifted. The distance between them, once filled with suspicion, was now filled with understanding. I don't know how this ends, Zane said finally. Syrah met his gaze, her violet eyes fierce. It ends with the shade wiped off the map. Or with both of us dead. Either way, I'm not running. Zane nodded slowly. Then I'm not either. They stood, side by side, their shadows merging into one as the sun passed overhead. The terrain shifted as they neared the Dagger Spine ravine. Jagged black rock jutted out of the desert like the broken bones of some ancient creature. The air grew thicker, darker, ominous. A low rumble echoed across the canyon, distant thunder rolling in from the south. A storm was coming. Syrah crouched behind a spire, her tail flicking irritably. We're close. Too close. Zane joined her, pulling out the salvaged data pad. The blinking red icon hovered just ahead. Base is buried deep in the ravine. Looks like they tunneled in from a collapsed sinkhole. Smart. No aerial view. Thermal masking. They built this thing to last. Syrah narrowed her eyes at the jagged rock ahead. Won't last much longer. Any idea how many are inside? At least 30. Maybe more if they regrouped. Zane exhaled slowly. We need a way in that doesn't involve walking through the front door. I've got an idea, Syrah said, her ears twitching. There's usually an emergency vent shaft. If we can find it, we might get access to the lower tunnels. Sounds tight. Yeah, she said with a smirk. You might need to suck in that soldier gut. Rude. They moved cautiously, hugging the shadows, climbing down a steep trail into the ravine floor. The rock here was black glass, volcanic obsidian, brittle and sharp. Zane's boots crunched softly with every step. Syrah barely made a sound. After an hour of searching, they found it, a cracked ventilation duct half buried behind a boulder. Rusted, narrow, but open. Syrah knelt beside it. It'll be a tight crawl, but it should lead into the base's underbelly. Storage or maintenance? Zane peered into the darkness. You sure about this? No, she replied, unholstering her knife. But I'm not in the mood for a frontal assault. He gave her a wry grin. Ladies first? She flashed him a sharp-toothed smirk. Try to keep up, human. She vanished into the duct. Zane followed close behind, the confined space forcing them onto hands and knees. His armor scraped against the metal walls, and more than once he had to twist sideways to squeeze through. The scent of oil and recycled air filled his nose. Ahead, Syrah moved with practiced efficiency, claws occasionally tapping against metal as she crawled. Her orange fur shimmered faintly under his flashlight. Next time, Zane grunted. We take the damn front door. No, you wouldn't, she said over her shoulder. You love this. He wanted to argue, but she wasn't wrong. The shaft opened suddenly into a dark storage room stacked with crates, and dimly lit by flickering red emergency strips. They dropped into it silently, weapons raised. Looks clear, Syrah whispered. All right, Zane said. Let's find their comm center. We need intel, and if possible, blow the whole damn thing to hell. She finished, her eyes gleaming. He nodded. The storm outside began to howl, wind screaming through the vents above them. Inside the enemy's lair, two hunters moved like ghosts. They crept through the lower corridors of the pirate base, footsteps muffled by the industrial flooring and low humming of ancient machines. The air was warm and stale, thick with the scent of grease, ozone, and unwashed bodies. Most of the rooms they passed were storage vaults, crates marked with the stolen logos of trade federations, medical supplies, weapons, and illicit tech. Zane leaned closer to Syrah. Looks like they've been stockpiling for months. Maybe years. She nodded grimly. The Shade's not just a raiding party anymore. They're preparing for war. Zane checked the datapad again. Mainframe access is 2 levels up. If we can reach it undetected, we might be able to sabotage their communications. I'll find the path. Sarah said. Her ears twitched once, twice. 3 guards. 1 above, 2 patrolling. Give me 30 seconds. Before he could respond, she was already gone, vanishing into the dark like a flame snuffed out by wind. Zane stayed low behind a generator coil. He counted in his head. 10, 20, 30. Then came the sounds, soft scuffle, a stifled grunt, and the thud of something heavy hitting the floor. Moments later, Sarah reappeared, wiping her blade on a cloth strip. Clear. You really enjoyed that a little too much, Zane muttered, climbing the ladder she pointed to. Don't worry, she said, following him. You're not on the list. They ascended through a tight maintenance shaft, eventually emerging behind a false wall in what appeared to be the base's main command level. Dozens of shade pirates moved about, issuing orders, checking screens, and monitoring sensors. A glowing holodeble at the center projected fleet movements across the quadrant. In the middle stood a tall figure, slender, cloaked in a red coat, with cybernetic implants lining the sides of his shaved head. That's their leader, Sarah whispered. Jekken Varn. Ex-military. Now fully insane. Zane watched Varn pacing beside the holodeble. What's he saying? She flicked a switch on her visor to amplify audio. Prepare the quantum disruptor for transport, Varn was saying. We leave for the Arcos system at first light. I want that weapon ready to fire. The United Colonies won't even see it coming. Sarah's breath hitched. Arcos? That's a civilian hub. They'll kill millions. Not if we kill him first, Zane said, his voice hard. They slipped away before the pirates could notice them, ducking into a server alcove filled with blinking interfaces and data ports. Sarah pulled out a multi-spike from her belt and jammed it into the main terminal. I'll copy their communication logs and troop movements. Maybe find the disruptor's storage location. Zane kept watch at the door, his rifle up. Any chance we can rig this place to blow? He asked. Not from here, she replied. But if we get to the disruptor chamber, we can set charges. Disable the weapon, collapse the tunnels, and trap them here. Big risk, he said. She glanced at him over her shoulder. Bigger reward. He couldn't argue with that. The download completed, and she handed him a data chip. Let's go finish this. As they turned to leave, the base lights dimmed, and a low, ominous siren began to wail. Looks like they know we're here, Zane muttered. Sarah's fur bristled. Then let's give them something to remember. The alarm's wail was deafening. Red lights pulsed along the walls as automated doors slammed shut behind them. The pirates were locking down the base. Dieter time, Zane said, scanning the corridor. We go left and loop toward the engine levels. From there, we hit the weapon chamber. Sarah's ears flicked backward. I hope you're not just making this up. I'm making it up really well, he said, breaking into a jog. They sprinted through the lower halls, ducking past maintenance bots and startled crewmen who barely had time to draw weapons before being gunned down or knocked out cold. The base had turned into a hornet's nest, chaotic and furious. Zane led them through a vertical shaft, climbing hand over hand up a rusted ladder. Sarah followed without hesitation, her claws digging in for support. The narrow tunnel reeked of heat and metal, and the sound of shouting pirates below echoed after them. At the top, Zane slammed open a maintenance grate and rolled into a cavernous room. Giant stabilizers vibrated along the walls, feeding power to something hidden deeper inside the rock. Sarah landed beside him and pointed through the steam. There, through a security window ahead, they glimpsed the disruptor. It stood at the center of a vast chamber, a monolithic cylinder nearly 20 feet tall, etched with glowing runes and humming with unstable energy. Tubes and cables slithered along its length like veins. Around it, a dozen engineers and guards bustled about, oblivious to the 2 intruders watching from above. Sarah's fur bristled. It's worse than I thought. Zane narrowed his eyes. That's not pirate tech. That's pre-collapse. It's not just a disruptor, she whispered. It's ancient. Zane checked his pack. I've got 4 charges. Not enough to blow the thing completely, but enough to trigger a core overload. We'll need to get closer, she said. Way ahead of you. They slipped down another side shaft, emerging on a grated catwalk overlooking the chamber. The heat down here was oppressive. Machinery groaned, lights flickered, and the energy pouring from the disruptor made the air shimmer. Zane planted the first charge behind a coolant conduit. Sarah moved like wine through the pipes, placing another beneath a support coil. Then it all went to hell. A shout rang out. One of the engineers had spotted them. Contact! North catwalk! He screamed. Instantly, the room erupted in chaos. Blasters fired. Guards scrambled. Alarms blared. Cover me! Zane shouted. Sarah spun, dual pistols blazing. She dropped 2 guards before they could even raise their weapons. Zane rushed forward, planting the third charge behind a shield generator. Then came the voice, cold and familiar. Kill them both. I want their heads as trophies. Varn had entered the chamber, flanked by 2 armored brutes wielding plasma axes. Sarah snarled. I've got the last charge. Cover me! Zane stepped in front of her, rifle spitting fire at the oncoming pirates. You better run fast, Fox. I don't run. I end things. She darted across the chamber, as energy bolts tore past her. The moment her final charge stuck, she turned and sprinted back toward Zane. Done! She shouted. Then let's blow this place to hell. He triggered the detonator. A low hum turned into a screeching howl as the charges detonated in sequence. The disruptor shuddered. Lights flickered. A pulse of unstable energy rippled outward, and the base began to quake violently. Core's going critical, someone shouted. The pirates panicked, scattering like insects. Go, go, go! Zane yelled, pulling Sarah by the wrist toward the escape corridor. Behind them, the ancient weapon began to crack apart. They didn't look back. The ground trembled beneath their boots as Zane and Sarah raced through the shaking tunnels. Sirens screamed louder now, blaring in a panicked rhythm. Emergency lights flickered wildly, and bursts of steam jetted from ruptured pipes along the walls. Sarah kept pace beside him, her long legs moving in perfect sync with his, tail flicking behind her for balance. Her ears were pressed back, eyes narrowed in focus. How far to the hangar? She shouted. 2 corridors, maybe 3, Zane replied, breath ragged. If it hasn't already collapsed. They barreled through a buckled doorway, Zane blasting it open with a charge from his wrist launcher. On the other side, the base had already begun to fall apart. Cracks split the walls, and debris littered the floor. The pirates they passed didn't even try to stop them. Most were too busy scrambling for escape pods or locked in mortal panic. A blast rocked the corridor just ahead, sending a cascade of rubble tumbling down. Zane dove, grabbing Sarah by the waist and rolling with her under a collapsed support beam. Dust filled the air. They coughed, then lay still for a moment, pressed together, hearts thudding. You all right? He asked. I've been better, she panted, her orange fur matted with sweat and dust. But still breathing. They scrambled out and kept moving. Finally, the hangar came into view. It was chaos. Small skimmers and transport ships were taking off in wild, uncontrolled arcs. Pirates fought each other at the loading ramps, desperate to escape. Flames licked at the ceiling, and the hangar shields sparked erratically, barely holding back the howling storm outside. There! Sarah pointed to a light-class recon ship parked in the back corner, scarred, but intact. They sprinted for it. Zane gunned down 2 pirates trying to climb the ramp ahead of them. Sarah slashed another across the back with her blade, sending him tumbling to the floor. They slammed the hatch closed behind them and raced to the cockpit. Zane took the pilot's seat, fingers flying over controls. Engines are live. Thrusters are online. Sarah strapped in beside him, bringing the weapons systems to life. Shields at 30%. We won't last long if we take a direct hit. Then let's not. Zane fired the thrusters. The ship roared to life and surged forward, blasting out of the crumbling hangar just as the base behind them imploded. A shockwave of blue and red energy surged outward, engulfing everything in a blinding flash. Chunks of rock and debris rained from the sky as the dagger spine ravine collapsed inward, burying the disruptor and the Shade's stronghold beneath a mountain of black glass. They cleared the blast radius with seconds to spare. The recon ship pitched violently, tossed by the turbulence. Zane wrestled the controls as Sarah gritted her teeth, watching their rear displays. The base was gone. So was Jack and Varn. Zane finally stabilized their flight. The stars unfolded ahead of them, brilliant and cold. Silence fell over the cockpit, broken only by the soft hum of the ship and their heavy breathing. For a long moment, they just sat there. Then Sarah said quietly, "It's done." Zane nodded, eyes fixed on the stars. "We got them." Her voice cracked slightly. "My people. They'll be safe now." He turned to look at her. Her fur was dusted with ash, her armor scorched, her hands trembling slightly. But her eyes still burned, bright and violet, fierce and alive. "I couldn't have done it without you," he said. She met his gaze. "You didn't have to. We did it together." And for the first time in years, Zane Calder smiled not out of victory, but because for once, he wasn't alone. The recon ship coasted in silent orbit above Virelia, its hull scorched and battered but intact. Zane and Sarah sat in the cockpit, bathed in the dim glow of emergency lights, watching the planet spin slowly beneath them. Either of them spoke for several minutes. The mission was over. The Shade base was gone, buried under tons of volcanic stone and collapsed tunnels. Whatever ancient weapon they'd planned to use, it had been obliterated in the blast. And with it, the last major threat to Sarah's people. Zane broke the silence first. "Now what?" Sarah leaned back in the co-pilot's seat, her boots up on the console. "I don't know. Guess I didn't plan that far ahead. You always seem like the one with the plan." "I usually am." She turned to him, her eyes softer now. "But vengeance doesn't exactly come with a sequel." Zane looked out at the stars. "There's always something else to fight. Another war. Another contract. That's how it goes." "Doesn't have to," Sarah said quietly. He turned his head toward her, brow raised. She sat forward, her tone thoughtful. "There's a Lyrian outpost in the Vega system. Small, remote, but safe. Survivors have been gathering there since the Shade attack started. I've been meaning to go." "You have people there?" She hesitated. "Not anymore. But maybe I could still belong there." Zane didn't speak right away. His mind was racing. She sensed it. "You don't have to come. Your guild. You've got a life, probably a long list of debts, promises, enemies." "I've got a lot of nothing," Zane cut in. "No family. No home. Just a name and a gun." He turned to face her fully. "But I've got a reason now. And she's got orange fur, a tail, and a temper that scares the hell out of me." Her ears perked, and for the first time, she looked genuinely flustered. "You trying to flirt with me, Calder?" He grinned. "Is it working?" "A little," she admitted, tail curling once behind her. He reached out slowly and took her hand. She didn't pull away. "I've had a lot of missions," he said. "But this is the first one I don't want to walk away from." Sarah studied his face, searching for deception. There was none. Finally, she leaned in, brushing her muzzle gently against his cheek. "Then set the course, bounty hunter. Let's see what a future looks like." Zane tapped the console. "Coordinates locked, Vega system." As the ship surged into hyperspace, leaving Virelia behind, either of them knew exactly what would come next. But in that moment, between two stars and against all odds, a human and a Vulpine had found something stronger than war, vengeance, or contracts. They'd found each other. The ship burst from hyperspace into the Vega system, a cascade of starlight swirling around them before giving way to a gentle blue glow. A lush, forested moon loomed ahead, ringed with silvery clouds and glittering oceans. It was breathtaking, a sharp contrast to the scorched, deadly wastes of Varelia. Zane whistled low. I take it back. Maybe there's something better than a paycheck. Syrah leaned forward in her seat, her fur catching the soft blue light from the viewport. That's Mirren's Reach, the last Lyrian outpost. Used to be a science colony before the collapse. Still looks untouched. She nodded. The Reavers never found it. Too isolated. Too hidden. Which makes it perfect. As they descended into the atmosphere, dense emerald forests gave way to winding rivers and low mountain ridges. Below them, the outposts came into view, clusters of domed structures nestled between trees, connected by footbridges and sunwalks. Lights twinkled through the canopy. Smoke rose peacefully from chimneys. Zane marveled. I thought the guild was all I'd ever have. A bed in a barracks. A gun in my hand. Orders barked over comms. But this... Syrah smiled faintly. Yeah. This is different. They landed the ship just outside the outpost's perimeter. A group of Lyrians emerged to greet them, tall, elegant, with fur patterns of varying hues, each marked by their own cultural symbols. Some had scars, others wore robes or worn armor. Survivors. Rebuilders. A silver-furred elder stepped forward. Her eyes, the same glowing violet as Syrah's, widened with recognition. Syrah Vale. We thought you were lost. I almost was, Syrah replied. But I found someone worth surviving for. Zane blinked, not quite expecting that. The elder approached him, studying his features. You are not of us. No, ma'am. But you fought beside her? I did. The elder inclined her head. Then you are welcome here. Come. We have much to rebuild. They were led through the settlement, past gardens where children played, into halls where Lyrians chanted stories and repaired broken tech from ages past. The outpost was alive with a quiet strength. A place of healing. Later, Zane and Syrah stood on the edge of a wooden balcony overlooking a mist-covered valley. He turned to her. You sure you want to stay? I've never been more sure. You think I'll fit in? With the tailless, soft-skinned crowd? Syrah stepped closer, her fur brushing his arm. You're rough around the edges. You shoot too much. You ask too many questions. And? She leaned up, pressing her forehead gently against his. And I want you here anyway. Zane smiled. Guess that settles it. They stood like that for a while. Two warriors shaped by fire, finally stepping into peace. No missions. No orders. Just new skies. And a new home. Over the next few weeks, Zane and Syrah became fixtures in the Lyrian outpost. Zane, despite being the only human in a sea of furred and tailed beings, quickly earned his place. He helped reinforce perimeter defenses, trained younger Lyrians in tactical maneuvering, and even assisted in rebuilding old power stations with the help of salvaged shade tech. His military instincts made him invaluable, and his patience, something he hadn't known he possessed, made him trusted. Syrah, meanwhile, reconnected with her people in a way she hadn't dared since her colony burned. Her reputation as a survivor and warrior earned her quiet reverence. Children followed her with wide eyes, mimicking the way she held her blasters. The elders welcomed her to council, asking for her opinion on matters of defense and future governance. At night, she and Zane returned to a modest dwelling on the edge of the cliffside, just far enough from the central dome to have privacy, but close enough to feel part of the heartbeat of the village. The home was simple, wood beams, cloth drapes, and a view of the twin moons rising over the forest. Inside, it smelled of warm spices, starroot tea, and her scent, something he now found comfort in. One night Zane stood by the window, watching as a light rain fell over the treetops. Behind him, Syrah stepped silently up, wrapping her arms around his waist, her chin resting on his shoulder. You thinking again? She murmured. Yeah, he said softly. It's just peaceful. I'm not used to that. I keep expecting something to explode. She chuckled into his back. Give it time. You'll adjust. He turned to face her, brushing a strand of white hair from her face. You already have? She hesitated. It's harder than I thought, slowing down. I keep thinking I'm wasting time if I'm not moving, planning, preparing. But we're not running anymore, Zane said. We can breathe. She nodded, then added with a sly smile. Although, we could still train. Just in case. He smirked. You trying to lure me into sparring again? No. I'm trying to lure you into the shower first. He raised a brow. That's not very traditional, is it? I'm not a traditional Lyrian. She tugged him by the hand. No kidding. They moved together like gravity had fused them, effortless, natural. When they kissed, it wasn't the hungry, desperate kind of war-torn passion anymore. It was slower now. Meaningful. That night, curled together beneath woven blankets, Zane whispered into her fur. I never imagined I'd find someone in all that madness. You didn't, she replied, tracing his jaw with a clawed finger. You survived it. And then you saw me. There's a difference. He grinned. And now you're stuck with me. Good, she said. Because I'm not letting go. And in the quiet hum of their home, with rain falling softly outside, two lives once defined by loss began to truly build something lasting. The days passed in gentle rhythm. Sunlight filtered through the towering canopy each morning, dappling the outpost with gold. Birds with iridescent feathers flitted through the trees, and the breeze carried the sweet scent of starroot blossoms. Zane adjusted. Slowly. He learned the Lyrian language, at least enough to trade jabs with the children and keep up with the older warriors. His nights, once filled with dreams of gunfire and blood, had begun to change. He still woke sometimes, heart racing, but now he'd roll over and find Sarah's tail coiled around his leg or her soft body pressed against his chest, and the darkness would recede. Sarah, too, began to soften. The fierce independence, while still present, had mellowed into a calm confidence. She taught tracking classes, rebuilt ancient Lyrian gliders, and occasionally climbed to the canopy treetop platforms to meditate beneath the moons. She smiled more, laughed more. One afternoon, while helping reinforce the north watchtower, Zane found himself watching her from across the clearing. She was helping two cubs, barely more than toddlers, plant a seedling near the community well. Her fur shone in the sun, her posture relaxed, her voice gentle. He didn't realize he was smiling until one of the guards nudged him. You're thinking about staying, aren't you? Zane blinked. What do you mean? The Lyrian, older, gruff, chuckled. I've seen that look before. The one where you realize you're not passing through anymore. Zane wiped his hands on a cloth. Yeah, he admitted. Guess I am. That evening, as the suns dipped below the horizon and fireflies lit the trees, Sarah and Zane sat atop their balcony in silence, watching the stars appear. She held a cup of tea in her claws, her long legs stretched out beside him. He reached for her hand. She didn't flinch. Sarah, he said softly, there's something I've been thinking about. She turned to him, her violet eyes glowing gently. You're not leaving, are you? No, he said with a smile. Just the opposite. She studied him, curious. I don't want to just stay here, he said. I want to belong here. With you. A silence stretched between them, filled only by the sounds of the forest. Then she leaned in, pressing her forehead to his. I was hoping you'd say that. He held her close, heart thudding, mind quiet for the first time in years. This wasn't a temporary haven anymore. This was home. And tomorrow, whatever it held, would be faced together. The sun rose over Mirren's Reach, casting amber light across the mist-laced treetops. The outpost stirred slowly, life unfolding in gentle rhythms. Families sharing meals, engineers repairing old equipment, children chasing each other through garden rows. Inside their home, Zane sat at the edge of the bed, shirtless and relaxed, lacing his boots. He glanced over his shoulder. Sarah was still curled beneath the light blanket, one leg draped lazily over a pillow, tail flicking once in her sleep. Her orange fur glowed in the sunbeam streaking through the window, and her white furred chest rose and fell in a slow, steady rhythm. He couldn't help but smile. You pretending to be asleep again? She murmured, one eye cracking open. I'm waiting to see if you make tea first. I made it an hour ago. She sat up, stretching with a yawn that exposed sharp canines and made her spine arch in a way that made Zane stare a second too long. Still not used to that, he muttered. To what? You. All of you. Being here. Being real. Sarah padded over to him, bare-pawed and graceful. She straddled his lap and looked him in the eye. Get used to it, human. He wrapped his arms around her waist, his fingers brushing the subtle markings along her spine. I think I could. Their morning was interrupted by a soft chime at the door. Sarah sighed and stood, tossing Zane a shirt. Don't keep them waiting. Elder Tessa said she wanted to see us. You think it's about the raids again? Probably. She paused. But it might also be something else. They dressed quickly and made their way to the council hall. Along the way, familiar faces greeted them. A few young Lyrians waved shyly. Zane nodded, adjusting to the role he never thought he'd play, a figure of respect, even peace. Inside the council dome, Elder Tessa sat at the round stone table with two others. Her silvery fur shimmered beneath the filtered light. Zane. Sarah, she said warmly. Thank you for coming. What's going on? Sarah asked, tail flicking behind her. Tessa's smile faded slightly. We've been monitoring faint distress signals from the outer systems. Survivors. Pockets of resistance. Isolated colonies that managed to fend off Shade's splinter cells. Zane leaned forward. You want to help them. We want you to lead a relief effort, another elder said. You have the skills, the trust, the experience. Sarah glanced at Zane. It's dangerous. The Shade might regroup. Tessa nodded solemnly. But it could mean everything. Some of them have children. Wounded. They're still running. Zane didn't answer right away. His eyes met Sarah's. She searched his face. Then she smiled softly. I'll go with you. You sure? Where you go, I go. Zane looked back to the council. Then we're in. Tell us what we need. Later that evening, as they prepared supplies, packed gear, and reviewed maps, Sarah pulled Zane aside. There's something else. He raised an eyebrow. Yeah? She took his hand and placed it gently on her stomach. He blinked. Wait. Her eyes shimmered, filled with uncertainty and hope. It's early. I wasn't sure. But it's happening. For a moment, Zane was silent. Then a breathless laugh escaped his throat. Stars, he said. You're serious. Sarah nodded. I didn't think it was possible. He pulled her into his arms and held her like the world might disappear if he let go. It's more than possible, he whispered. It's a beginning. The stars over Mirren's Reach seemed brighter that night. Zane stood outside their home, staring up at the sky. A gentle wind rustled the canopy above, carrying the scent of flowering duskroot and distant rain. He heard her approach, he always did, but didn't turn until her arms slid around his waist. Sarah rested her chin on his shoulder. You haven't said much. He exhaled, chest rising slow. I'm still processing. You want it though, don't you? He turned to face her. More than anything. I just didn't know I could have it. She traced her fingers along the back of his hand. Neither did I. They stood in silence. 100 thoughts passed between them, none needed words. Finally, Sarah guided him inside. They lit a low fire, the kind that burned slow and warm, and curled up together on the woven floor mat. I've been thinking about names, she said, voice quiet. Zane chuckled. Already? It's a Lyrian tradition, she replied. The name is a seed. You plant it early, and it grows with the soul. He leaned back, cradling her. All right. What are you thinking? If it's a girl, she said. I like Viola. Zane tilted his head. Means lightborn, she answered. Like something that shines through darkness. He smiled. Beautiful. And if it's a boy? She hesitated, eyes meeting his. Maybe Elias? Zane blinked. That was my father's name. I know, she said gently. You told me. That night in the cave. He remembered. The firelight. Her quiet listening. His voice cracking, telling stories he hadn't told in years. You really don't forget anything, do you? Only what doesn't matter. He kissed her softly, brushing her fur with his fingertips. Then I guess I'm lucky I mattered. You're more than lucky, she murmured. You're mine. Later, as they lay together beneath a soft quilt, Zane rested his hand on her belly again. It was still flat, but he could almost imagine what was coming. The future they hadn't dared dream of was growing right there, between two people from different worlds, stitched together by war, survival, and a stubborn refusal to die alone. Do you think they'll look more like you or me? He asked, grinning. Hopefully neither, she teased. But I wouldn't mind if they had your eyes. I hope they get your ears, he countered. I always know exactly what you're feeling from how they twitch. You're ridiculous. You love it. She smiled against his chest. I do. The fire crackled beside them. Outside, the forest pulsed with life. And within her, beneath orange fur and beating heart, new life had begun. Morning sunlight spilled into the council dome like warm honey as Zane and Sarah sat side by side before the 5 Lyrian elders. Their seats, carved from pale wood and bone glass, encircled the chamber with quiet authority. Elder Tessa, the eldest of the 5, leaned forward with her hands clasped. We've reviewed the data. Your child shows no signs of hybrid incompatibility. Sarah's ears perked up, her tail curling around her leg. And what does that mean, exactly? Elder Marin, youngest among the council, but sharp, answered. It means the child is viable, strong, and likely fertile. Zane frowned. Fertile? Tessa nodded. Lyrian reproductive decline has been our slow death since the collapse. For generations we've watched our numbers dwindle. Litters reduced. Pairs unable to bond. Sarah's gaze narrowed. And now, you too, said Elder Thor, have done something our science deemed impossible. You've created life where none should have grown. A bridge. A new path. Zane shifted in his seat. So what? You want to study us? Turn our kid into an experiment? Nothing of the sort, Tessa said firmly. But we must understand how. Why? Not for control, only for survival. Sarah's claws flexed subtly. We won't let the council make our child into a symbol. Tessa gave her a gentle nod. Nor would we. But understand this, your bond, your child, may offer hope not just to Lyrians, but to the galaxy. Marin leaned forward. Your child carries genetic markers that predate the collapse. Markers that appear in both human and Lyrian code. They may be ancestral. Zane blinked. Are you saying our species are related? Tessa raised a brow. Perhaps not directly. But long ago, we may have walked the same world, or been shaped by the same hands. A hush settled over the chamber. Sarah sat straighter. Whatever the truth is, this child isn't a prophecy. They're ours. We'll raise them as one of us. Not as a relic. Elder Tessa stood, stepping forward slowly. And we will protect them. With everything we have. Zane rose, meeting her eye. Good. Because if anyone comes for them, they'll have to go through me. A flicker of amusement tugged at the corner of Tessa's mouth. I suspect they'll regret that. Outside the dome, villagers paused in their work to glimpse the couple as they emerged. Whispers spread. Not in fear, but in awe. Heads nodded. Smiles followed. Some of the older Lyrians wept quietly. Not because of what the child would be, but because of what they already represented. Hope. That night, the outpost held a celebration. Not for war, not for survival, but for life. Lyrian customs were rich with symbolism. Beneath the twin moons, villagers gathered around the sacred flame, a towering pyre at the heart of the village square, where tradition and memory converged. Children wore wreaths of woven dusk root and sang songs in their native tongue, their high, melodic voices echoing off the trees. Sarah stood beside Zane, dressed in ceremonial cloth, a pale gray robe with embroidered gold threads that shimmered like starlight. Her fur had been brushed until it gleamed, and her silver-white hair had been braided with beads passed down from her mother's line. "You clean up well," Zane whispered, nudging her gently. She smirked. "Try not to drool in front of the elders." He looked down at his own outfit, simpler, but still finely woven. A sleeveless tunic, charcoal gray with a silver sash. It was the first time he'd worn something that wasn't armor in, well, years. The crowd quieted as Elder Tessa stepped forward, flanked by 4 attendants. She held a carved bowl of shimmering water and a delicate wooden branch tipped in crystal. "Tonight," she said, "we mark a turning." The flames flickered higher as she spoke. "A hunter and a wanderer. A warrior and a dreamer. 2 threads spun from different looms, now woven together. And from their union, something new." Gasps and murmurs spread through the crowd as Tessa motioned Sarah and Zane forward. "Step into the light," she said. Zane hesitated, unsure. Sarah took his hand and tugged him gently toward the flame. "Don't worry. It's not a trap." "I didn't say it was," he muttered, but followed her all the same. Before the fire, the elder dipped the crystal-tipped branch into the shimmering water and flicked it over their heads. "With this blessing," Tessa intoned, "we welcome new life. Not as miracle, not as myth, but as kin." A cheer rose, loud, joyful, unrestrained. The kind of sound that shook mountains. Sarah turned to him, eyes wet with unshed tears. "They accept us. All of us." Zane took her into his arms, one hand pressed to the small but growing curve of her stomach. "Then let's give them something worth believing in." Later, as the village danced and laughed and sang, they slipped away into the forest, hand in hand. Fireflies lit their path. The air was cool and rich with blooming flowers. In the quiet, beneath a moon-silver sky, Zane pulled her close and whispered, "We made it." Sarah rested her forehead against his chest. "Not just made it, Zane. We built it." And in the deepest part of the forest, where no weapons rang and no blood was spilled, a new kind of war was won, the kind that no history book ever writes about, but changes everything just the same. Days turned to weeks, weeks to months. The outpost thrived. What began as a fragile sanctuary grew stronger with each passing day. New survivors arrived, some Lyrian, some not, guided by whispers of safety in the Vega system. Sarah and Zane welcomed them with open arms. It didn't matter where they came from, what scars they carried. Everyone had fought their own war. And now, they had peace to defend. Zane found new purpose training patrol squads, organizing scouts, and keeping the settlement fortified. But unlike before, his work no longer felt like survival, it felt like contribution. Like legacy. Sarah, meanwhile, had become something far more than a warrior. She was a voice for the people, a symbol of resilience. Expecting a child only amplified that aura. Her every movement, every word carried weight. And yet, she remained the same Sarah, sharp-tongued, fast-witted, and unafraid to tell someone when they were being a fool. One morning, Zane returned from a patrol to find her seated beneath the spirit tree at the center of the village. She was drawing in the sand with her claw, her expression calm but focused. "You all right?" he asked, crouching beside her. "I'm thinking," she said. "Dangerous," he teased. She smiled faintly, eyes never leaving the ground. "I dreamed of them again last night. The ones I lost." Zane lowered his gaze. "They were smiling," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "Watching. I think they're proud." He reached over and took her hand. They would be. Sarah leaned into him,
and
her muzzle
then
brushing his
go
neck.
into the
I don't feel haunted
stage.
anymore.
So it's into
I
that
just feel
same
watched,
stage
not
as
in fear,
what the
in
double
remembrance.
crochet.
Zane wrapped his arm around her shoulders. It's strange, isn't it? We killed and bled and ran for so long. I never thought life after war could be peaceful,
So then
because
you'll
no one
have
ever teaches us how to
boys
live,
when you're her.
she murmured. Only how to survive. The wind stirred the tree branches overhead, scattering delicate golden leaves down around them. Sarah caught one in her palm. I think our child will be different. Not born into ashes or vengeance. Just born. Zane looked at her belly, now visibly round beneath her tunic. You think they'll understand all this someday? She looked at him with those bright violet eyes. They won't need to. They'll feel it. In how we hold them. In the stories we tell. Zane pressed a kiss to her temple. Then let's make those stories worth remembering. Above them, the leaves danced in the wind like glowing embers. And somewhere deep in the soil beneath their feet, the future stirred, quiet, warm, waiting to bloom. The day came without fanfare, no alarms, no battle cries, no panic. Just the soft knock at the door and the worried face of Elder Marin. It's time, he said. Inside their home, Sarah gripped Zane's hand tighter than she ever had in battle. He stayed by her side as she was led to the birthing chamber, an ancient Lyrian sanctuary built of vine-woven stone and warm crystal. Soft light pulsed through the walls. The air was filled with herbs and steady chanting, low, rhythmic, grounding. Sarah refused to let go of his hand through the entire ordeal. And she didn't need to. Hours passed in sweat and breath and effort. No painkillers, no sterile white rooms, just the strength of a warrior and the unwavering presence of the man who'd crossed galaxies to stand beside her. When the child finally emerged into the world, the midwife gasped. Sarah, panting and tear-streaked, blinked up at the sudden silence. Is something wrong? No, the midwife whispered. Something is right. She handed the baby into Sarah's arms. Zane leaned over, his heart thudding louder than any gunfire he'd ever faced. Their child had soft fur, white down the chest, orange down the back, and small, downy ears that twitched against Sarah's skin. Their tiny hands had 3 clawed fingers. But their eyes, when they opened, were unmistakable. Human. Brilliant green. His eyes. Hi there. Zane breathed, stunned. Stars, you're perfect. Sarah held the child close, nuzzling them softly. Vaila. It's her. Zane nodded, throat thick. Vaila. Later that night, the village gathered beneath the moons. The fire at the center of the outpost burned tall and bright, casting long shadows over old scars and new beginnings. Elder Tessa stood before the gathered, her voice carrying across the quiet. We have seen war. We have seen death. And yet here we are, alive, together. She motioned to the small family seated near the flame. Sarah Vale, Zane Calder, and their daughter, Vaila. The first of a new chapter. A child not born of division, but of unity. Not of destruction, but of promise. The crowd erupted in cheers and song, music rising into the star-strewn sky. Zane stood behind Sarah, arms wrapped around her, as she cradled Vaila against her chest. She's going to change everything, he whispered. Sarah nodded, her voice low. So will we. Think she'll be a fighter like her mom? She'll be whatever she wants to be, Sarah said, brushing her muzzle against the baby's cheek. But she'll grow up knowing the galaxy doesn't have to be broken. Zane kissed the top of her head. Then we'll build her one that isn't. They stood in the glow of the fire, wrapped in each other, their daughter warm between them. Above, the stars watched in silent witness, not to a war, or a legacy of violence, but to the quiet, beautiful rebellion of love. In a galaxy carved by conflict, one human and one vulpine had done the impossible. They'd created peace. They'd created life. And now, together, they would shape the stars that followed.